your source for automotive reviews, analysis, and maintenance.
Your source for automotive reviews, analysis, and maintenance. Hi, I'm Chris Capardoni, and today the beautiful car behind me that I'm reviewing is the 1985 Mark I Toyota MR2 AW11. Beautiful car. Let's see what it's all about. First off, a lot of people have requested to know what does MR2 the acronym stand for that the car is named after. And after doing some research, there are a number of variations, but the one that seems to be the most accurate, and I think Toyota will confirm, is that MR2 stands for mid-engine rear-wheel drive two-seater. There have been other variations on that acronym, but this is really what the car stands for and what it's about. The car was originally designed in 1981 by Toyota designer Seiichi Yamaguchi. It was introduced first in Japan in 1984 and then internationally in 1985. And the example behind me is a 1985 North America version. This was Toyota's attempt to build a driver sports car from the ground up. It needed to be fun to drive and affordable, and obviously have the Toyota reliability that everyone knows of and trusts. And in my opinion, based on being an auto enthusiast for many years, I would agree that they did succeed back in the 1980s to build that sort of vehicle. It was, with the help of Dan Gurney, who was the late F1 and NASCAR constructor and team owner, he contributed to the tuning of the chassis, which created that neutral handling sort of sports car. It's very neutral in its balance, and in addition to that, the lateral acceleration is 0.81 Gs, which, to put that into perspective, was very good at the time. The 1985 Corvette, which was the hallmark for lateral acceleration, had a lateral G of 0.88. So this MR2 was very, very close to that sort of capability of handling. The MR2, obviously, as you can tell, it's a low vehicle, but this vehicle also has a low center of gravity, which again contributes to that neutral handling, that outstanding track performance that can be pushed to the limit. It's like glue on the track, with that nearly 50-50 weight distribution, given the fact that the engine is midship, creating more weight distribution. Now let's get to the engine, my favorite part of any car. The MR2 was introduced with an inline 1.6 liter four-cylinder engine. The model number is the 4AGE. And it had, at the time, which was not very commonplace, it had a dual overhead cam design, which is it's a very modern design. Most vehicles on the road today still have that design. It generated a very modest 112 horsepower. In essence, it was a Corolla engine that was souped up. But the tuning that was done and the refinement that was done made you believe that it was much more powerful an engine, and it could actually redline at 7,500 RPM. The engine had variable geometry intake valves, which acted like modern variable valve timing that we see in many vehicles today. The system brings maximum torque on much lower in the rev range, which provides much more performance. This car here, at the time it was introduced, could do 0 to 60 in 8.3 seconds. Today that doesn't sound very impressive, but back then a lot of cars could not achieve that. In 1987, based on customer reviews and feedback and product testing and all those sorts of marketing things, in 87, they introduced a supercharged version of this engine, which brought up the horsepower from 112 up to 145 horsepower. And that allowed it to do 0 to 100 kilometers an hour or 0 to 62 miles an hour in 6.5 seconds. So quite a dramatic increase. This car, this engine here while it is in a difficult position, a lot of the maintenance can be done quite easily. For example, spark plugs are all here, throttle body, the battery is just right there. The air filter is very serviceable. It's just right there off of the driver's side. The valve cover is right here. You could actually service it and replace the gasket without having to remove the engine or much of the components of the engine bay. Not like many cars today, where you literally have to rip the top of the car off, the top of the engine off to get to it and service it. The diagnostics was done. This was before OBD2, so this is OBD1. And the port for that is just right there beside the firewall. The throttle is right here, so it's a manual throttle. The coolant is housed here and on this side. The dipstick is actually down here, close to the belt, and the serpentine belt is actually down here. Now that would require a little bit of gymnastics to get to. I think it would be better to get it from the top. That's how I would service it, but it is possible to do it from below. Any other major work that needs to be done, it is probably advisable to drop the engine and service with the engine out of the vehicle. The one issue with doing a lot of serious work are these things here, the buttresses. While they are very attractive for design, they do impose your ability to access deep down, as well as the trunk. This is the trunk area, so you would not be able to work this way. It would just be this way or this way here, these two angles. Parts are still even after so many decades, they're still readily available. You could go to your local Toyota dealership, or what a lot of people do is they buy them online. I get my parts at a source called Rock Auto. You can get parts for literally any vehicle there. I get all my parts for a vehicle like this from Rock Auto. Body parts, that's more tricky. You probably will have to do some research and try and find donor vehicles at auto recyclers, or see if you can go on to some sort of online site where you could buy an as-is vehicle that's being scrapped out or parted out, and see if you can grab the panels that you need. Or again, if you're into body work, you can repair rusts or do modifications yourself and then repaint. This is the frunk, so the front storage compartment of the Toyota MR2. As you can see, it's quite an odd shape, but you could store various items up front. But the main purpose of this compartment is to allow you access to many vital systems in the vehicle that need servicing or maintenance. For example, in the far corner over there, you can see a little kick panel. Behind that is the one of the fuse boxes of the vehicle. And staring right in front of you is the compact spare tire. This would be the only spot in the vehicle that they could logically house it. Over here we have the brake and the power steering reservoirs, the master cylinder. The strut towers, this is where you would service the front strut towers. Here's the reservoir for the windshield wiper fluid. And down over here, we have access to the radiator. So if any maintenance needs to be done, this is the area you would come to. And of course, if the headlights burnt out, or if you needed to service the pop-up motors, this is the area where you would go to provide that maintenance or service. Again, credit has to be given to Toyota for creating another usable utilitarian space in such a small little vehicle that's a sports car. So again, very useful and purposeful. This is the trunk area of the MR2. So while it is a very limited space, I think Toyota engineers did maximize the space as much as they could, given the design of the vehicle. It's a rectangular shape, so you could actually fit a full set of golf clubs in here, or 5 or 6 grocery bags. my whole forearm fits in here, and I can just barely touch the carpet at the bottom with the tip of my finger. So it is fairly deep and usable. We have to remember that this is a sports car, and they need to be given Toyota needs to be given points for its ability to actually put in a very usable space for storage of most common everyday items that people want to transport. So this is the interior of the MR2. As you can tell, it's a very tight and compact area, but very ergonomic in the way it's laid out. I can reach every control very easily, most importantly the steering wheel and the 5-speed manual transmission. Speaking of the manual transmission, this would be the transmission that I would highly recommend that you get in any sort of MR2 investment vehicle. The reason being is the option was a 3-speed automatic transmission, and that just at that time did not provide the level of performance that you could extract from the 5-speed standard transmission. This transmission here, and I'll say it, it was Miata-like. So what I'm trying to say is I'm providing a high compliment to Toyota for developing a standard transmission at least 10 years before Mazda did in their Miata, in creating a very user-friendly, very driver-oriented manual transmission, which falls very easily to hand, shifted through the gears very positively. You could feel it, created a very nice, and I would say an outstanding driver experience. And the shifts were very precise, and it enhanced the performance of the vehicle. So again, any sort of MR2 that you would invest in should have the manual transmission. Moving on from that, the interior, like I said, is very tight. The seats, though, the 2 seats in here are very ergonomic and very comfortable. I do not need to lift my back off the back of the seat in order to reach anything in the vehicle here. I can even touch the passenger door here without much effort. Again, it's a tight vehicle. The seats, though, Toyota did provide a leather option, so that was an additional option. And like I said, the transmission, there was an added cost 3-speed transmission that you could get with a vehicle. Wouldn't recommend it. This one has the manual sunroof, which actually pops off. And like I showed previously in the front, there is hardware there where you can mount the glass sunroof for it to be safe. You don't have to actually try and figure out how to put it in the trunk on an angle. It actually fits and locks into position in the front frunk. This car here does not have air conditioning, but that was, and this is strange to say, was a dealer installed option in the day. You could get the air conditioning, but again, you'd have to go to the dealer and order it and have them install it. I think they changed that later on in the late 90s, but originally it was a dealer installed option. One thing that I will say that Toyota could have put themselves way above their competition was in designing an airbag system, like a driver's airbag for this vehicle. They did not do that. It wasn't even an option. Back in the 80s, everyone believes that Mercedes was the one that actually developed and introduced the airbag system to passenger vehicles, but that's not true. After doing some research, I found out that Chevrolet was the one that actually pioneered the system, and the first test vehicle that they put it in was a 1973 Chevrolet Impala. So that vehicle had an airbag system in it, and through my perspective, that's 10 years before this car was introduced. Toyota certainly had access to the technology. They could have designed it into a vehicle, even as an added cost option, which would have made this vehicle even more desirable years down the road. Just like ABS. ABS was being developed at the time by Mercedes, and Toyota could have, again, created an additional cost option by providing ABS in this vehicle. It already had the four-wheel disc. They could have gone way above and provided an ABS system. So again, Toyota provided the design of an excellent vehicle, but they really didn't go in the stratosphere in thinking through everything that they could have incorporated into this vehicle to make it a car for the ages, for lack of a better term. But again, they chose to focus on not just the reliability, but also on the affordability. So I can see why they may have not chose to develop those systems for this vehicle, because it would have dramatically increased the overall price of the vehicle, and they wanted to compete against a handful of other cars, not just with reliability and performance, but with price.
And now moving on to styling. The AW11 overall design is a time capsule of the 1980s. Very angular and avant-garde, but overall a very attractive design. The headlights pop up and then go down, which allowed for a smaller front end, again contributing to the overall attractiveness. The taillights were very utilitarian, but not very attractive. And in addition, the 5-mile-an-hour bumper design favored safety over style. The Mark II did a much better styling job of the overall rear end, specifically the taillights. The buttress vents are very functional. They allow air exchange in the cab from the cabin, and the vents on the hood are not cosmetic. They are very functional. They allow engine heat to radiate out from the engine bay. The rear spoiler was originally a dealer-installed option, as was air conditioning. The spoiler greatly enhanced the overall design, but it only marginally increased downforce. But there was an increase in downforce nonetheless. In 1986, it housed the newly mandated third brake light just underneath on the center underside. The stance was low, and it enhanced the styling and contributed to a low center of gravity. That low stance made it more susceptible, though, to stone chips and lower body rust, which developed behind the mud flaps and the side skirts. So a real life downside to that aggressive stance. In order to maintain the value of a first generation Mark 1 MR2, do not perform any non-reversible modifications to the exterior. If resto mods are your area of interest, focus on engine improvement and performance. Overall, with styling, A+.
The handling of the MR2 was that it was a very capable and competent car, worthy of track use due to its McPherson strut setup, as well as having a low center of gravity. In addition, its lateral acceleration was very good for the time, and it allowed it to be tossed around, and it reacted very quickly and responsively in emergency situations. One warning about this vehicle is its severe oversteer at limit, particularly in wet or slick conditions, where the tail end of the vehicle, you could lose control of it and end up getting into an accident. The Mark 1 AW11 MR2 had lots of direct competition in its day. From, in no particular order, the Nissan 300ZX, the Toyota Supra, the Toyota Celica, the Fiat X19, the Honda Prelude and Honda CRX, the Pontiac Fiero GT, as well as the Mazda RX-7. I'm not going to rank these vehicles in this episode, as it's very subjective and will require a considerable amount of time to justify my opinion. But let's just say that I do hold the MR2 near the top of that list of competitors. Okay, now it's time to evaluate and rank the MR2. Based on my analysis and comparison with other vehicles, my ranking for the AW11 based on different areas is as follows. Handling, it's a very well-balanced and capable sports car, so I'd have to give it a 9 out of 10. Styling, very exciting when it was introduced, and it still has its charm today, So overall, I would give it an 8 out of 10. Reliability, this is a legendary Toyota product, so it has high quality and its assembly was impeccable. So I'd have to give it a 9.5 out of 10. Very high. Design, it's difficult to service the vehicle due to the location of the engine and obstacles in the way, like the buttresses. But overall, it's fair, and I would give it a 6.5 out of 10. Investment potential. The pro of this vehicle is that due to its uniqueness, and it will continue to increase in value. But on the con side, this was a mass-produced vehicle, so as these vehicles drop from availability, the ones that remain will start increasing more and more in value. So overall, this is a very good vehicle. It's entertaining and will always have a place in automotive history. So overall, I'd have to give it an 8 out of 10. Very nice car, very great car. When it comes to calculating the potential future value of well-preserved and or restored to factory specifications, consideration for the uniqueness this vehicle has in the macro passenger vehicle market, and more importantly, how unique this vehicle was to Toyota Motor Corporation. This was a special car for Toyota, and its importance should be factored into potential and projected future values. Usually, at 25 years, any vehicle that has the aura of collectability begins to appreciate in value, as the MR2 does. The optimal range to have purchased a 1985 MR2 would have been between 1995 and 2010. That's when it would have been at the bottom of its depreciation curve. Given the projected appreciation, purchasing one today still provides upside potential. My advice overall would be, if you can find one, purchase it and restore it to factory spec. So in ranking this vehicle, I have to rank it very high amongst its competition of the day. It was very difficult to beat the combination of performance, attractive styling, and outstanding reliability that you would get with any Toyota. So the AW11, the first gen, MR2, well-preserved examples are highly collectible, and they will continue to be collectible in the decades to come. Expect valuations for the 1985, so the introductory MR2, and the 1987 supercharged version to fetch anywhere between $25,000 to $50,000 US dollars, and that's the equivalent of 32 to 64,000 Canadian dollars. For examples that have mid to low mileage, are in excellent shape, have documented history, and obviously are in good shape. We have now reached the end of our presentation. Please support us by subscribing to the channel and clicking on notifications. Follow us on other social media platforms so we can continue to bring new videos on vehicle reviews, analysis, and maintenance. Thanks for watching Drive.